remedies that are taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ. What did he say about medicines? Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, was not just a scholar of Islam, but also a doctor. There's some people in this world that believe that if they take the right amount of supplements, they can live forever. You're telling me that I should go to sleep at 9 o'clock. How many times have you read Qur'an and, oh my days, I'm feeling so tired. I told you, don't do the pizza, man. Black seed. It tastes bad. It's good for you, trust me. Red Bull, ask Red Bull. Give me a prescription. And they're like, no. And then he said to drink that on what? Which basically means first thing in the morning. What's the worst form of honey? Factory is having a big fat laugh at your expense. Every year ranked as the world's healthiest diet. A lot of that corruption happens because of the mafia. Obviously for experiment purposes. It actually tastes nice. But it says from Saudi Arabia, so it must be good. Eat 10 of them, bro, and then have just one date. Khalas. Everything will vanish, bro. Always remember, Allah is a shafi. These remedies are given to you from me as advice for education. If you have an illness or a sickness, you should seek professional help and advice. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya al-mursaleen nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My beloved brothers, it's beautiful to see you all in the masjid for a lecture which I think is not really a common topic, prophetic medicines. And to be honest, I've never actually spoken about this topic before either. For those of you who don't know, besides being a student of Islamic sciences, I'm also a graduate of pharmacy. I worked as a pharmacist for many years, though recently I haven't really worked as a pharmacist for maybe a year now. And what I hope to bring to the discussion around prophetic medicine is to try to bring the two worlds together, world of modern medicine and that taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ, classical medicine. And out of the two, focus of course would be the traditional prophetic medicine reported from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also a special focus on a book written by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim. So he wrote a book called Zad al-Ma'ad. It's actually a phenomenal work. It's a hybrid between seerah and fiqh. And in that book, there's a chapter on At-Tibb al-Nabawi, prophetic medicine, and it's been published as a standalone work, and it's also been translated into English now as well, with the title Prophetic Medicine. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim mentions about these prophetic medicines, and I'll quote to you what he says as well. And then I want to share with you some practical tips on how we can benefit ourselves from these prophetic medicines. So with that, the first point I'd like to make is, when I say medicine, for most people, they think about the pills that come in the white box. Yeah? And this is actually not the way medicine was thought about for the longest time in human history. Even today, in China, for example, when a person is sick and they go to the pharmacy or they think of medicine, they don't actually think of those pills in white boxes only. They would also think about herbs, plants, and special or food items that have medicinal properties. And if you look at the prophetic remedies, prophetic medicines, you find that they are a collection of food items, herbs, and other things which are used to treat illnesses. So this doesn't mean that I'm saying, there's a clash between modern day science and medicine and the classical or the Islamic remedies. But it does mean that when you think of medicine, you shouldn't restrict yourself only to the tablets and the pills that we are given by our doctors and taken in from pharmacies. There's been huge benefits to human civilization through modern medicine. For example, just to demonstrate this point, in the 1700s, do you know what the average life expectancy was for people in the world in the 1700s? What would most people die before? What age would most people die before? Anyone take a guess? 14? No, not that low. No, the most people, the life expectancy was, what did you say? 18? No. 80? No, not 80, not 80. It was 30. So in the 1700s, most people would die before the age of 30. And the 1800s, it didn't rise much. It still was below the age of 40. Only in the mid-19th century did it climb to 46.5 years. So that means most people would die before the age of 46 and a half. And then in the 2000s, it climbed up to 66.8 years on average. So what was the main reason why life expectancy was so low before? Is because of infant mortality. And then what was the cause of the rise? Well, it was modern medicine. Yes, firstly, in terms of water sterilization, so access to clean water wasn't easy, and there were waterborne diseases like cholera, which killed millions of people. So that changed because of sterilization systems were introduced. Also, vaccinations became something which became mass-produced, and so diseases like smallpox, which killed hundreds of millions of people, was no longer the case. Other vaccinations like measles and polio. And then, obviously, the discovery of penicillin, which was in 1928, the first antibiotic. And because of all these things, which we owe to modern science, has the life expectancy of people in this world today risen above 30 years. Now, the point I'm making here is that we have so much to benefit from modern day medicine. But at the same time, I want to make another point, which is we shouldn't think as Muslims that there is some kind of clash between modern day science and Islam. Because as a Muslim, what we believe is that whatever human beings advance and produce comes from their mind, and the aql was given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not the case that somehow science and Islam are two different things, or medicine and Islam are two different things. In fact, many of the great scholars of Islam were both fuqaha and doctors. For example, Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah was known to be not just a scholar of Islam, but also a doctor. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim himself was not just a scholar, but also a doctor as well. So very famous Muslim scholars that were also doctors, which shows there's no clash between these two things. It's only when people from the community maybe of that subscribe to science who become atheists or agnostics or anti-religion then make a conflict between them and people of religion. But as Muslims, we should be able to transcend those types of misunderstandings. Now, when we're looking at modern day medicines, we should also appreciate that though there are great gains, there's also a lot of harms as well. For example, right now, there's a big struggle regarding antibiotics. The reason being is because there's an overuse of antibiotics, and it's creating these superbugs which are resistant to antibiotics. And as a result, if we keep on overusing them, then we'll have these superbugs which will be incurable and we'll be in a very disastrous situation. So at the moment, there's a concerted effort around the world to reduce the amount of antibiotics that you get prescribed. So when you go to the doctor and you're feeling unwell and you say, give me a prescription, antibiotics, amoxicillin, and they're like, no, that's viral. You don't need antibiotics for that. In a way, that they are correct, but also they want to reduce the amount that prescribers are because of this reason. And all this really teaches us is that we should, when you think about medicine, which is my main first point, realize that it's more holistic than just going to the pharmacy for traditional medicines. Rather, there is a whole catalogue of things that we can use to treat ourselves, many of which are natural, come from herbs and plants. And there's a crossover as well. For example, there's many medicines that you take today from the pharmacy that come from plant source. The most famous of which is aspirin. Aspirin comes from willow bark, yes, and that's a plant. And before aspirin was produced, people used to use this willow bark for things like fever and for pain, right? Then with modern science, they managed to find out it was the salicylic acid in that plant that had the potency to treat these things. So they extracted it and made it into tablet form. So there's a whole science behind using plants and herbs to treat, and that's part of modern medicine as well. Now, focusing our attention to the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say about medicines and seeking treatment? There is a classical debate among scholars: is seeking medical treatment mustahab or not? Is it recommended or not? And you might think that's an easy one. Of course, it's recommended. But if you go back, classically speaking, there was a difference of opinion. Some scholars said that it is not recommended to use medicine to treat diseases. And others said, no, it is. Now, how do we understand the position of those who say it is not? Well, some of the scholars say that because there is a clear hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Tadawu ibadallah, seek medicinal treatment, O slaves of Allah, because فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَضَعْ دَاءً إِلَّا وَضَعَ لَهُ دَوَاءً, because Allah has not sent down a disease except He has sent down the cure, sent down the treatment, the remedy. Except for one disease, and that is death. No, in this hadith it's actually al-haram, which means old age. Yes, old age, which means when we grow old and then our cognitive function and our physical being regresses and we become weaker and we get, weaknesses and become fragile, there's no cure that Allah has sent down for that. Which is interesting because, a lot of people today, they are fixated on longevity of life. There's some people in this world that believe that if they take the right amount of supplements, they can live forever. Yes, there are people like that, subhanAllah. But we know that this is something that we should not plan to live forever in this dunya, firstly, because it is not the case that we can live forever. But there is something far greater than dunya waiting for us, inshallah. So we shouldn't want to live here forever either. So going back to the discussion, how do we understand the first camp of scholars who say that seeking treatment is not mustahab? Firstly, their argument is based on the concept of tawakkul ala Allah, to place your trust and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, there is another point that they have, and that is they were referring to treatments that are not proven to have curative properties, are not known or established to cure a certain disease. And if that is the case, like there's something you can take, and I'll give you a modern day example. A lot of people, when they suffer from cough, they get cough remedies, right? Now, there's a discussion because there's alcohol in many of them, but let's say there's ones that are alcohol free. The science behind it is very weak and flimsy. There's no established science to show that cough medicines actually help you with your cough, right? So according to the first camp of scholars, they would say taking these types of medicines, which are based on weak or flimsy evidence, is not mustahab. And that's, to be honest, that makes sense, right? We would agree with that. However, this hadith is quite clear. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, seek treatment, O slaves of Allah, because Allah has not sent down a disease except He has sent down its cure as well. The next thing, therefore, this hadith is in Sunan Abi Dawood, is then to think about, okay, so what are the top remedies, right, that we can take or practice as human beings that are taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ? So you'd be amazed that in this book by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, there are actually not tens, but hundreds of remedies that he has listed. And in the books now, I'm not sure whether it was written like this, but they have categorized it in alphabetical order and also in terms of the diseases. So if you have this disease, then these are the medicines, or a list of all the medicines that you can take and then what they can be used to treat as well. So obviously we don't have time to go through the hundreds, but I've selected a few which inshallah are what I think are actually very prominent, easy to do, and extremely beneficial. The first one, which I think nobody would have guessed, is actually sleep. Yes, sleep. So Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentioned that sleep, as performed and practiced by the Prophet ﷺ, is a remedy, right? So I'm going to read out what he said. Those who read about the Prophet's guidance concerning being awake and concerning sleep will find that his sleep was the best and the most beneficial for the body, the organs, and one's strength. He used to sleep in the early part of the night and would wake up in the beginning of the latter part, use siwak, perform ablution, and pray as much as Allah permitted. Consequently, the body, the organs, and one's strength will acquire their fair share of sleep, rest, and physical activity, along with acquiring the complete rewards from Allah. This method ensures righteousness of the heart and body in this life and the next life. So one of the things Imam Al-Qayyim mentioned is the time when the Prophet ﷺ would sleep. When would he sleep? When did he say he would sleep? He didn't say after Isha. He didn't say after Isha, but you're very close. What did you say? Who's speaking? I can't. Early part of the night. Very good. He said that you sleep in the early part of the night. So this is interesting discussion among some of the fuqaha. They say that it is makruh to speak after Isha. Have you heard this? You didn't know this. So many scholars, they say it is makruh to speak after Isha. And I think, oh my God, I have those long conversations with my friend every night. Why is that the case that they would say it's makruh? The reason is because, number one, it's sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to sleep early in the night. And secondly, if you are busy doing this until early into the night, late into the night, what's going to happen to your tahajjud? What's going to happen to your fajr? What's going to happen to the following day? Yes? So this is tip number one. Timing of sleep is actually just as important as duration of sleep. And you know who knows this better than anyone? People who do night shift. People who work night shifts, they may have 8 hours sleep in the day, but it's not the same as 8 hours at night. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا. Allah said, we made the night as a cover. Why? To rest. Allah has made the body in sync with the day and the night. And this cycle is designed with your body in mind. So when you think about going to sleep, if you think of sleep now as a remedy, which means it's a cure for some illnesses, mental illnesses, as well as physical illnesses, sleep should be done when? Well, number one, it should be done as early after Isha as possible. Yes? As early after Isha as possible. So if somebody says, I find it very difficult to sleep early. Let's say somebody who constantly goes to sleep at 1 a.m. And let's imagine we're not in summertime, obviously, that makes Isha as late anyway. But let's say it is, Isha is around 9 o'clock, right? 9 o'clock. So he says, you're telling me that I should go to sleep at 9 o'clock? I can't. I go to sleep at 1 a.m. normally. Well, in response, I would say, well, there's a number of things you can do to try to force yourself to go to sleep early. One of them is, in that day that you want to sleep early, try to tire yourself out by doing a lot of sports or go to the gym or run. Just tire your body out as much as possible. And then you may find that you'll be able to go to sleep earlier. Yes. Also, in order to force yourself, because what happens is once you force yourself to go to sleep earlier, the next day what happens? You start feeling tired naturally at the time that you went to bed yesterday. And then you do that for 3 or 4 days, and now your body has become accustomed to sleeping early. So what else can you do to force yourself to go to sleep early if you find it very difficult? Any other tips? Not use the phone, that's a good one. Yeah, because they say the the blue light from the devices can, activate your brain, and then that can, prevent you from becoming tired and going to sleep. Yes. Reciting, that's an amazing tip, subhanAllah. And the reason why I say it's an amazing tip is because what happens when you recite the Qur'an? Who comes along and says hello? Ash-shaytan al-rajim. A'udhu billahi min dhalik. How many times have you read Qur'an and, oh my days, I'm feeling so tired. This is from Ash-shaytan. It's beautiful that the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that before you recite the Qur'an, you say, A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan al-rajim. Because you become active in the worship of Allah, and shaitan will become active in trying to misguide you. So yeah, also, even my sheikh, he used to say this to me. He said, if you struggle to go to sleep, just read all the adhkar you're supposed to before you sleep. Because once you start reading all the adhkar, and some of the surah, like Surah Al-Mulk, some scholars say, and others add Surah Yasin, Sajda, he goes, very soon shaitan will come and say, let's put this guy to sleep. He's doing too many hasanat. Yeah. So there's a number of things. You can drink camel tea, which is known to naturally have properties to put you to sleep. Wherever it is, all I'm saying is that if you can just do it for one night, the second day it will become easier, and then slowly you can work yourself into that pattern, inshallah. Now, what does good sleep do? Yeah, what does it do? Well, in modern day science, there's studies to show that sleep, what's fascinating is that scientists still haven't really figured out what sleep does. They know that it is essential to human health, but they don't actually know what happens when you go to sleep or why you have to sleep. Isn't it? It's amazing. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but if you try to, like when you have exams, you try to do an all-night and you revise all night, and then the next day, how does that day feel? Completely zoned out, isn't it? And you just feel like you're outside of your own body. So good sleep, they say now that one of the functions it serves is it cleans out toxins in the brain that can actually build up and cause disease like Alzheimer's. Yes, there's studies to show this. Also, they say sleep boosts production of cytokines, which boost the immune system. Also, good sleep regulates hormones like insulin in the body. And generally speaking, getting the right sleep, which is two things, timing of sleep and duration of sleep, two things, timing and duration, there's studies to show that it increases lifespan. Yes, lifespan. Now, there's a big discussion as to how much sleep is the most ideal. How many hours are the most ideal? What do they often say? 7 hours, 8 hours. There was the number 8 thrown around for a long time. It seems like it's between 7 and 9. Yeah, 7 and 9. Now, as a Muslim, what is somewhat troubling about that? What is somewhat troubling about that? Fajr and tahajjud. Fajr and tahajjud. If we know that it's from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to wake up before dawn and pray tahajjud and then stay awake for fajr, how do we then reconcile the idea that modern day science says 8 hours is what's recommended, and here we're being told at the very least, even if you want to go for 8, your sleep is going to be broken. Yes, maybe in 2, right? Or there's going to be a long section and a short section. Well, it may be the case, subhanAllah, that it doesn't have to be 8 hours in one shot. And there's science to suggest as well, because there's something called the sleep cycle, right? Where it takes around about 60 to 90 minutes to get into what they call REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And that is your deep sleep. And then you come out and you go into a lighter sleep and then into a deep sleep. By the way, I tried this app once because I wanted to try to shorten the amount of time I sleep for. And also I didn't want to wake up groggy, So the app, I think you put the phone under your pillow or something, I can't remember exactly where, next to you, and it based on movement, can tell when you fall asleep. And then it sets an alarm to wake you up in a window where you are coming out of REM sleep. Yeah. So I tried this, and for me it worked. And when I would wake up, even if it was, maybe 3 hours, sometimes 5 hours, sometimes, I never felt groggy. However, if you do not get the right duration of sleep hours, then you can build up what they call sleep pressure and feel tired during the day. Here's the amazing thing. From the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to do what? To take qaylula, a nap, an afternoon nap. And there is a hadith which is authenticated by Shaykh al-Albani. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, قَيْلُوا فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ فَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَا تَقِيلُ. Take naps, for the shaitan does not take a nap. Yes. Firstly, the second part of the hadith makes a lot of sense, and the shaitan never sleeps. Subhanallah, in your sleep, do you not have nightmares? And the Prophet ﷺ said, where do nightmares come from? A shaitan. By the way, do you know what you're supposed to do when you have a nightmare? Do you know what the sunnah is? Yes, you're supposed to, some say change your position, but the main thing is turn to your left shoulder, say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, and spit 3 times. Dry spit, not on your wife. Dry spit 3 times. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. What does that mean? It means that the shaitan is the cause of the nightmare. Also, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said you should never share a nightmare with anyone. Yes. Even he said that a true dream, you should not interpret it yourself. Why? He said, because if you interpret it wrong, you'll still think it's right, and you may act upon it. You may act upon it. So, sorry, there's a bit of a tangent there. So what do we do now? You try and take a nap, right? What is a nap? A lot of people try to nap, but they can't nap. They go into proper sleep, yeah? And then they wake up and it's like, oh my God, what day is it? So a nap, the art of taking a nap, and it is an art. There's some things you must practice. What is the best time? The scholars say, basically, either just before Dhuhr or just after Dhuhr. When you take a nap, don't go under the covers in your bed. Lie down on your bed, right? But do not go under the covers. Also, when you go for a nap, you should tell yourself, I'm going to sleep for and a number of minutes, anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. This is called a power nap, 10 to 20 minutes. You know what's fascinating here is that some people can think of a duration in their mind to take a nap for, and they can wake up without an alarm or prompting at bang on that time. Anyone here do that? You can do this? MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Say MashaAllah. This is amazing to be able to do this. But if you cannot do this, obviously use an alarm, yeah? Don't want you to get in trouble with people depending on you and you're sleeping away. The beauty of the nap is you do not go into REM sleep, deep sleep. But what it does do is that it dissipates what they call sleep pressure. And I said sleep pressure is what builds throughout the day, which makes you feel tired. And because maybe you woke up for tahajjud, or you prayed your fajr and you didn't get the full 8 hours sleep, the nap, when taken correctly like this, can make up for that shortcoming. Yes? In either case, whether the ideal time is 8 hours or not, the main thing is that you sleep early and you sleep for a good duration of time. So, Imam Al-Qayyim then talks about the best position to sleep in, right? I wanted to say something else about the timing of sleep. In terms of timing, not only should you sleep early, But, and subhanAllah, this works. I found from my experience it works, and there's studies to show this as well, that the ideal sleep is the one that's done at the same time every day and waking up at the same time every day. If you can make that adjustment in your schedule to go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time, which is very difficult when the Fajr times are always going back and forth, but still, maybe you can manage it, then you will find that you will get more benefit from your sleep, right? So some of the benefits of sleeping that they talk about, I've mentioned them already. Let's talk about the position. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, sleeping on the stomach is the worst way to sleep. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ passed by a man who was in the masjid laying down on his stomach, and he prodded him with his foot and said, "Qum fa innaha nawmatun jahannamiyya." Sit up, for this is a hellish sleep. Yes. Some of the scholars say that hadith da'if. In any case, if there is some confidence in what was said, then Imam Ibn al-Qayyim is affirming that by saying, no, this is actually the worst way to sleep, on your stomach. What is the best way to sleep then? Yes, on the right-hand side. And Imam al-Qayyim actually explains that this is actually the best for the organs inside the body as well, that they rest they rest more comfortably when you are sleeping on your right side. Yes. Is it permissible to sleep on your left side? Yeah, it is permissible to sleep on your left side. Is it permissible to sleep on your back? It is permissible. Imam al-Qayyim does say, though, that this is not the preferred position to sleep on. To sleep on your back, he said it's not the preferred position to sleep on. The right is the best, left is permissible, back is not desirable, and on the stomach is the worst. Yes. And again, somebody may say, but I always sleep on my stomach, what should I do? What do we do with this person who always sleeps on the stomach? What did the person do to the man sleeping on his stomach? He didn't step on him. I said he prodded him with his foot. Where did you get step on? He invented the hadith in his head, subhanAllah. Yeah, maybe we'll prod this person with our foot as well. Yeah. So oversleeping, this is another problem. Oversleeping. So this is now, you are sleeping more than the ideal amount, which some say between 7 to 9. And he would speak about how he would try to compete with his own self to see how long he could sleep for. He said, once I slept for 2 days. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. He said, I slept for 2 days. I thought he was joking. And then he proceeded to explain how he did it. Fascinating. He said, you need a few sleeping bags and a tent. He set up a tent. He had a tent in his living room and sleeping bags. And he said, what happens is the more weight you get on your body, the more weight you get in your body, the more you feel like you're in a cocoon, and make sure you wear something to block out the sound. Yes? It's like a sleep for 2 days. Imagine, wallahi al-azim, I don't know, I think I'd feel like I lost a part of myself if I went to sleep for 2 days. 48 hours of my life gone. La ilaha illallah. So, oversleeping is a problem. Yes, this is an extreme example. Oversleeping is a problem. So, there's studies to show that oversleeping actually affects your mental health, and it can create mental health issues. There's science to show that it is linked to shorter lifespan, and there's science to show that it can lead to increased cardiovascular disease as well. Yes. So oversleeping is a problem. So the first remedy was sleep. Second remedy is black seed. Now, the black seed is well known before the Prophet ﷺ as being a source of healing. So it comes from this plant, Nigella sativa, and interestingly, some seeds from this plant were found in some of the pharaohs' tombs in Egypt. Yes, many, many years before the Prophet ﷺ spoke about this. So it seems as though even the Egyptians, they knew about the healing power of black seed. So the famous hadith which is found in Sahih al-Bukhari. Habibi, it's a bit hot in here. Is it possible to put the AC on? Yeah. The famous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Alaykum bihadhi al-habba as-sawda fa inna fiha shifaan min kulli da illa as-sam." Use black seed because it contains a cure for every type of ailment except for, this is the one you were talking about before, except for death. Yes. It's a very emphatic statement, isn't it? Every type of disease except for death. That's even more, is even more emphatic than the first hadith I mentioned, which is Allah has sent down a cure for every disease except for old age. This is saying this is a cure for every disease except for death. Yeah. So, and moreover, it's reported in Sahih Bukhari as well. So modern day science, what does modern day science say about the black seed? What we hear is that it contains oil and an active compound that has anti-inflammatory properties as well as antioxidant properties as well. And therefore, some experts say that black seed can be a remedy to treat things like asthma, allergies, rheumatoid arthritis, eczema, psoriasis. And there's a study I came across that shows that a half a teaspoon daily can improve brain health like memory and attention. Yes. There's many studies going on with black seed, but it comes in different forms. The problem with black seed is what? Has anyone tried black seed? What is the problem with black seed? Yeah, it's a very not pleasant tasting thing, basically. Yes. But Imam Al-Qayyim has something. He has something for you. Yes. So he says one of the ways to use black seed is to ground it, so the powder form, blended with honey and drunk with some warm water. Yeah. So if you were to mix it with some honey, and honey we'll talk about as well, in water, meaning dilute it, then you can knock it back, inshallah, and the taste will not prevent you. But some of these things, they have unpleasant taste. There's another tangent here. Red Bull. Anyone had Red Bull before? It's banned in some countries, isn't it? Why is it banned? Because of the excessive caffeine content. When Red Bull came out, it was trying to compete with the likes of Coca-Cola. And that market is cornered by Coca-Cola and maybe one or two other big names. However, it managed to carve out a space in the market for itself and it became a huge player. Now Red Bull is mainstream, right? One of their marketing ploys was to make it taste bad and to put it in smaller cans and to charge way more than anyone else. Do you know why? Because they said, most people, when they think of medicine, they think of something that doesn't taste nice and is more expensive than the regular stuff and comes in small amounts. Interesting. Yes. And remember, when it came out, it was like £1. And back then, a can of Coke would be like 40 pence, 50 pence. Yeah. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but going back to the black seed, it tastes bad. It's good for you, trust me. Yeah, Red Bull, ask Red Bull. طيب, so there's a narration here where the Prophet, a companion once fell ill, and Ibn Abi Atiq came to visit him and said, treat him with black seed, take 5 or 7 seeds and crush them, mix the powder with oil, and drop the resulting mixture into both the nostrils. For Aisha radiallahu anha narrated to me that she heard the Prophet ﷺ say, black seed is healing for all diseases except for death. So that's black seed. If you can, get your hands on it and to use it, especially in the way that I mentioned, mixing it with honey and then with water and having it regularly, inshallah, you will see the benefits. Then we have honey. Now honey, I think, is the only one out of all of these remedies or food items mentioned in the Qur'an explicitly as being shifa. The other ones mentioned a hadith. So the verse is an amazing verse, Surah An-Nahl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. Your Lord revealed to the honeybee, make homes in the mountains, in the trees, and in the structures they raise. Then Allah says, يَخْرُجُ مِنْ بُطُونِهَا شَرَابٌ مُخْتَلِفٌ أَلْوَانُهُ فِيهِ شِفَاءٌ لِلنَّاسِ. From their bellies come forth liquid of varying colors in which there is healing for people. It is fascinating that the Quran mentioned the houses of the honeybees as well as the liquid that comes from them, which we call honey. The houses of the honeybees is called what? The hive. Yes. And the hive, just the engineering feat in the construction of the hive is something that human beings today marvel over. That hexagonal shape, yes. Allah is saying, I inspired this tiny weak creature to create such a formidable structure. Yes, formidable structure. You know, some of these man-made islands you find like in Dubai and other places. You know, one of the biggest engineering problems that they have is how are they going to construct these tall buildings when there's waves crashing against the foundations of this man-made island. So you know what they do? They realize that they have to put some kind of like breakers around the structure of the island so that when the water comes, it doesn't crash directly with force against the foundations. And then they realize that obviously you can't build a wall around it. We still want the water there. They need to build some kind of structure that would allow it to pass through, but would basically take off the momentum of the water. Which structure did they find was the strongest and served the benefit that they wanted to the best? It was the honeycomb structure. Yes, the honeycomb structure. So Allah first and foremost is saying, your Lord inspired this animal to create something like this. Then Allah said, but what do they use it for? They use it, these animals, these insects use it to produce something called honey, which Allah says shifa'un linnas. He never said shifa'un lil mu'mineen. He said shifa'un linnas, which means whether you believe in Allah, whether you don't believe in Allah, it has the power to cure diseases. And this is also well known in modern medicine as well. One of the things Ibn Ashur mentioned, I want to read to you. He said, this verse is teaching us that Allah the Almighty has placed within the bee a perception, leading it to perform a precise, well-ordered craft, producing a useful drink that requires no milker to extract. So he's saying if you think about other animals like cows and sheep, they do produce milk, but you require someone to go to the udder to remove it. As for the bee, it produces it and removes it from its own body so that human beings can take it. Yes, this is from the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, reported by Ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ said, healing is in three: a gulp of honey, cupping, and cauterizing, which is using heat basically to seal up wounds. But he said, I forbid my followers from using cauterization. So the third one, he forbids us from using. Now, talking about honey, Imam Ibn Qayyim says, the Prophet ﷺ used to drink honey with cold water, and this is an especially effective method to preserve the health that only the best doctors could have knowledge of. Drinking honey on an empty stomach will dissolve phlegm, purify the stomach's protective layers, and dissipate its viscidity and excrements while heating it mildly. Honey in addition helps against the clogs in the stomach, kidney, liver, and prostate. Honey is much more beneficial to the stomach than any other sweet. So many things. So if you suffer from gut problems, if you suffer from, for example, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or you have problem with digestion, even if you have the diseases that are more troublesome, like Crohn's disease. A friend of mine, subhanAllah, he suffers from Crohn's disease. May Allah give him shifa. He says that when he gets a flare up, the only thing that he can have is honey and almonds. Nothing else. He can only eat those two things when he's at his worst. So if you have stomach problems, have honey, which is the way that Imam al-Qayyim said the Prophet ﷺ used to have it. He said he used to take some honey, dissolve it in cold water. The problem is sometimes the honey is very thick, depending on where it comes from, and it doesn't dissolve easily in cold water. So what you do is you take a little bit of warm water, not boiling water. I'm going to come to this point later, but you know, when you excessively heat a lot of these natural remedies, a lot of their healing properties are killed off, like the proteins and stuff like that. So you get a little bit of warm water and you mix the honey in there, then you mix in more cold water. طيب. And then he said to drink that on what? On an empty stomach, which basically means first thing in the morning, you wake up, get your honey, a little bit dissolved in warm water, then add to the cold water, and then you drink it on empty stomach. And he mentioned so many benefits of this. He also mentioned that Imam al-Zuhri said, eat honey because it is good for the memory. Yes. So if you've got exams coming up, yeah, you want to remember everything, honey. He said the best type of honey is the white, pure, light and sweet honey. White, pure, light and sweet honey. Also the honey that is collected from trees and mountains is better than the honey that is grown in cells. This is a very important point. Allah the Almighty in Surah An-Nahl, He mentioned that Allah inspired the bees to make homes, and then He mentioned the locations. What was the first location? Minal Jibal. And then Ash-Shajar. Honey that comes in the mountains or is produced in the mountains is made at a higher altitude, right? And then you have honey that comes from woodland, forests. And then you have honey that comes from basically in the town, in the cities. Then you have a worse form of honey. What's the worst form of honey? The cheap honey that you get in the supermarkets. Why do I say that? Because a lot of this honey is not even real honey. Yes, it's not even real honey. So there's three things that they do. Yes, first and foremost, they often dilute it with sugar syrups. So they take some honey and they mix with it sugar syrups. On top of that, they treat it with very high temperature. Yep. And thirdly, they filter out some of the beneficial things in honey, which is found in raw honey only, which is the pollen and the wax. Yep. So if you want to use honey as a treatment, you should try to buy raw honey. Yes, raw honey. And the best honey you can buy is the honey that comes from which location? No, from my shop. No, I'm just kidding. The honey that comes from the mountains. Honey that comes from the mountains. So some people in different countries, in Morocco, in Yemen, obviously, you have a Sidr honey, for example. I'm not an expert in honey, by the way, but if you have a choice of buying honey, right, ask, okay, which is the one that comes from the highest altitude? And the higher you go, the honey becomes more liquid-like as well. Yep. And if you can get honey with the pollen, which is very difficult, that is the best form. Yep. And a little bit of impurities such as the wax, even that they say has some of the healing properties as well. So these are some of the benefits of honey and what you should try and get your hands on. But the issue with the supermarket cheap honey is that you might just be having sugar syrup. Yep. And someone in a factory is having a big fat laugh at your expense. Next one is olive oil. Olive oil mentioned by Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah as being a form of treatment or a remedy. We have a ayah in the Quran, Ayatul Nur, And in Ayat An-Nur, Allah the Almighty spoke about His guidance and made a parable, a simile to do with a lamp. And this lamp has fuel. The fuel is said to come from shajaratim mubarakatin zaytuna, from a blessed olive tree. From a blessed olive tree. Now that doesn't explicitly mean that this is a form of shifa, but the tree is olive tree, and that shows significance. However, there is a hadith found in Sunnah Tirmidhi, which many scholars say is authentic. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kulu az-zayt waddahinu bihi فإنه min shajaratin mubaraka." Eat the zayt, the olive, and use it as an ointment, meaning the oil, because it is produced by a blessed tree. This matches with the wording in the Qur'an that the tree is blessed. By the way, olive trees are so majestic. If you see olive trees, it's wow, subhanallah, amazing. And the way they plant them as well, because they want each olive tree to absorb the sun throughout the day, they plant them separately at a distance from each other so that no one tree takes the shade of another tree. So when you see the olive farms, you just see loads of the trees. They look majestic in the way they stand and the way the shape and structure, but also because they stand alone as well, it makes you more in awe of them. In any case, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he says the best type of olive oil is that squeezed from ripe olives, while oil from unripe olives is cold and dry. Now, here's a bit of a clash here between modern science and what Imam Ibn al-Qayyim is saying here. So first and foremost, olive oil is known to be the central ingredient in the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is every year ranked as the world's healthiest diet. Yes? And olive oil is central to that diet. They put it in everything. And the best type of olive oil is extra virgin olive oil. They refer to it as EVO, E-V-O-O, extra virgin olive oil. Now, extra virgin olive oil is basically, in simple terms, the purest version of olive oil. More technically, it is made from a mixture of green unripe olives, which are said to have the most nutritional, medicinal properties, plus some of the riper non-green, like purple olives. However, those olives, when combined, because the ripe ones have better flavor, the unripe ones have a bitterness, so they mix it. The main thing is that from picking it to pressing it is a short window. And secondly, when they press it, it's cold pressed, meaning there's no heat treatment. Remember I mentioned that heat sometimes kills medicinal properties. So it's cold pressed. That olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, is like liquid gold. And you should try to ingest it, get it inside your body in as many ways as possible. You can cook with it so long as it's not extremely high temperature because it has a low smoke point. But on salads, even having a spoonful every day would be extremely beneficial. And I'll mention some of the benefits. One of the interesting things about olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, is that a lot of the exported stuff from Greece and from Italy is basically contaminated or corrupted before it reaches us. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff in the supermarkets that say extra virgin oil is not extra virgin olive oil. And in Italy, because it comes from the south, a lot of that corruption happens because of the mafia. The mafia have taken control of a lot of the ports. And what they do is they made business out of olive oil. How? By corrupting it. So they mix it with rapeseed, they mix it with loads of other things, and no one knows the difference anyway. It gets shipped over to us and we just see it on supermarkets, we just buy it. So someone did a study in North America. They just got all the extra virgin olive oil off the supermarket shelf, which is readily available, tested it and found that the overwhelming majority was not extra virgin olive oil. It was mixed. Overwhelming majority. I don't know if the same is in the UK, but I thought I'd test this theory myself, right? So I bought some expensive extra virgin olive oil from Waitrose, obviously for experiment purposes. And then I ordered some extra virgin olive oil from a small olive farm in Italy that I know someone who goes there, has seen it, and personally recommends it. And they say the way you can distinguish between the fake and the real is actually very hard. The main distinguishing factor is the smell and the taste. The smell and the taste has a floral, flowery taste with not that much bitterness. So the floral smell and the taste is really the main thing distinguishes it. This is actually important because not only are you going to be able to get your hands on the right stuff, but if you take a spoonful of the real extra virgin olive oil, you will like it. It will not taste oily. It will not taste like, oh God. It actually tastes nice. Yeah. So I got both of those, the Waitrose one and this one. I could tell the difference. So if you do some research on your own, yeah, and try to get the extra virgin olive oil and then put it on your salads, you can cook with it, like I said, and even just having it like that, a spoonful every day can be beneficial. So what are the benefits? Number one, lowering bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol, and also raising HDL cholesterol, which is your good cholesterol. There was a study I came across that showed that people who drank 45 ml amounts of extra virgin olive oil, this is the proper stuff, for 9 weeks lost 5.2 pounds in weight loss. 5.2 pounds in weight loss. So for losing weight, also reducing the blood sugar level post-meal. So when you eat, you get your spike in glucose. Having extra virgin olive oil, the studies show that it reduces the spike in the blood sugar levels. طيب. The next one is siwak. Siwak. What is siwak? Siwak or miswak is a natural toothbrush made from the twig or root of a tree. Yeah, we've all seen it. I think I have one here. Yes, this miswak, it says here. I was just going to see where it's produced. I can't tell where it's produced, but it says from Saudi Arabia. So this is mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, not this particular one, but the idea of siwak. And it's actually been used in Asia, in Africa, as well as Arabia for thousands of years for oral hygiene. Yes, for oral hygiene. Now, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says the best siwak comes from the twigs of the tree of Al-Arak. Al-Arak is a tree, the scientific name is Salvadora persica. And he says the fibers of the siwak, they act like natural bristles. They scrub away the particles of food and plaque. Now, going to the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, there's an authentic hadith in which he said, this is a report about him, أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا قام من الليل يشوس فاه بالسواك. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ would wake up at night, he would clean his mouth with a siwak. And also in Al-Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said, السواك مطهرة للفم مرضاة للرب. Siwak cleans the mouth and pleases the Lord. One of the obvious ways in which using siwak pleases Allah is what? Why does using this to clean your mouth please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, not because of dhikr. It could be if you're doing it for that intention. Why would brushing your teeth, because this is the modern day equivalent, it might not be exactly like for like, but brushing your teeth properly be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Hygiene, you're close. Was it? Cleanliness, half of faith, very good. Anything more specific than that though? Oh, make shaitan angry? Probably would do, but I don't think maybe that's, was it? You're warmer. You're warmer. Yes. Maybe. Yes, final person at the back. Why is it pleasing to Allah to use a siwak to clean your mouth, have good oral hygiene? Ahsant. Because bad breath is something displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. And the Prophet ﷺ would specifically use siwak. One of the reasons was to make sure he didn't have no bad odor coming from his mouth. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even in his last moments, when he is struggling with fever and the sakarat al-maut is approaching him, he still asked Aisha to ask Abdurrahman to pass him the siwak, and he cleaned his teeth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very close to the time that he passed away. So using siwak is, in this hadith, cleans the mouth. It is something that gives good oral hygiene. Imam al-Qayyim says siwak is beneficial for many reasons, such as perfuming the mouth, strengthening the gums, clearing the phlegm and the sight and the sight, so the eyes, and preventing cavities. It also preserves health of the stomach, clears the voice, helps the digestion process, helps make the speech clear, and encourages one to recite the Qur'an, remember Allah, and to pray. Siwak also fights sleepiness, please the Lord, delights the angels, and increases the number of the good deeds. So what is really amazing is that modern day science has linked good oral hygiene to general body health. Yes, and I wanted to just share with you that there's some studies that show that there are links between poor oral hygiene and systemic diseases such as heart disease and stroke. So there's a study that says that, or shows that, gum disease is linked to plaque buildup, meaning in the blood vessels, which then increases the risk of heart attack. In another study, they show that bad oral hygiene, poor oral hygiene, makes you 2 to 3 times a higher risk of cardiovascular events. Also, diabetes. Gum inflammation makes it harder to control blood sugar. So having good oral hygiene helps your body, generally speaking. Imam al-Qayyim says, the best way to use the siwak is by soaking it in rose water. Also, the best type of siwak is made from walnut stems. And he mentioned, the author of At-Taysir said, it is said that when one uses siwak once every 5 days, it will clear the head, sharpen the senses, and alert the mind. So beside the actual siwak, can we include in this guidance using toothbrush, using toothpaste, flossing, and other things used to clean the gums and the teeth? Yes or no? Can we? What do you think? If the purpose of the siwak is to increase the oral hygiene, then anything that can also do that would be included, so long as it's beneficial, right? So brushing regularly, brushing thoroughly, flossing is supposed to have a huge number of benefits attached to it as well. All these things not only freshen your breath, but they stop things like gum disease. And we've just shown you here that gum disease is actually connected to other systemic diseases like heart disease and also diabetes as well. So siwak, another remedy. I think we have time for one more or not? Yeah. We'll do one more, and that is dates. Dates are of number of different types, right? You have the fresh dates, you have the ripe dates, and they have different names in Arabic as well. The one we're going to focus on is tamr. So tamr are the dry dates. In a hadith in Sahih Muslim, so in Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever eats 7 dates in the morning, and in one narration from Al-Aliya. Al-Aliya is a area or a place in Medina known for having date farms, in particular the Ajwa dates. Yes, you know the Ajwa? So there's lots of date farms that produce dates and Ajwa dates as well. The Aliya ones are the most expensive. Why? Because this hadith basically increased the price of them. And not just that, but maybe the trees there have special pollen or something. So those are the most expensive. If you want to be very specific, you should try to get the Ajwa that is from Aliya. Yeah. And again, as they say in Urdu, milawat hoti hai. So there may be people selling you Aliya that's not Aliya. So do some research and find the right person, inshallah, to get your hands on it. So the hadith is, whoever eats 7 dates, in one narration, these ones from Aliya, will not be harmed by poison or magic. Yeah, will not be harmed by poison or magic. So people that struggle, for example, with jinn possession, with ayn or other things, there's another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, a house without dates has no food. A house without dates has no food. So it seems to be that, generally speaking, dates have a medicinal property, can be used for healing and treatment. This is also confirmed by modern science as well. They say that the fruit that has the most amount of sugar per, weight is the date. Yes, dates. And very famously, the famous tennis player, in between the games, he sits down and he will have one of those mature dates. Yep. So this is well known that, for boosting your energy, dates are very, very good. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, Tamr, dried dates, he says, strengthen the liver, relax the bowels, increase semen production, especially when taken with pine, meaning pine nuts, and relieve sore throat. As for those who are not used to eating dried dates, such as the residents of cold areas, dried dates cause them clogs, harm the teeth, and cause headaches unless they are eaten with almonds and poppy. So, I actually have this problem. When I go for Umrah, I go crazy on the dates. Yes, one of the first things I do is I get those, those almost unripe dates that are found in the freezer. They're half ripe, half hard. You've seen those ones? They're amazing. They are addictive. The top of them, the top part of the date is basically unripe. The hard, fibrous, but the bottom half, squidgy and sweet. And they're usually frozen. So I get some of those and I get a little tub of cream and some khubz, some bread, fresh bread. And then Bismillah, it just starts. Then what happens is 2 days afterwards, all the spots come out. Yeah, so this is the hot. This is what you're talking about. It generates heat in the body and that can increase the production of certain hormones, and then that can lead to oils in the face which cause... So he's saying that if you have this problem, then you should have it with, he says, almond or poppy. Yeah, poppy seeds, very good. He says dried dates are among the most nutritious fruits. This is confirmed now as well. On a tangent, which fruit has the most vitamin C? Do you know? No, it's not orange. No, it's not lemon either. No, it's not grapefruit. It's actually green color. No, it's kiwi. Kiwi, yeah. Kiwi has the most amount of vitamin C, even more than oranges. He says also, when one eats dates in the beginning of the day, they help kill worms. Although dried dates are hot, yet they have the strength of an antidote against worms, killing or at least decreasing their numbers, especially when dried dates are taken frequently on an empty stomach. Dried dates are a fruit, a type of food, a cure, and a drink and sweet. One of the amazing things about dates, subhanAllah, for people that fast, if you struggle to eat a lot in suhoor, just try and have 3 dates. I have tried this myself, just having dates for suhoor, and it makes me feel as though I am satiated all the way up to iftar. I don't know what it is about dates, but it just kills your hunger throughout the day. Maybe this is good for weight loss as well. If you want to diet and cut down your food, maybe have dates first thing in the morning, and that will help to control your appetite throughout the rest of the day. طيب, we'll conclude it there. There are a few last things I want to say. These remedies are given to you from me as advice for education. If you have an illness or a sickness, you should seek professional help and advice. And when you do, also consider being more holistic in how you treat yourself. The white box with the pills is a form of treatment, but then you have so many other things that are available too, and you should do your own due diligence, research to take what is best for you and your health. Secondly, whatever we take, always remember Allah is the Ash-Shafi, the cure. He is the one who provides the cure. Not any person, doctor or otherwise, foodstuff or herb or anything. Allah is the one who provides cure. He can cure you without you taking a single remedy. He creates the means for you to cure yourself with these remedies. So whatever you take, whether it's a tablet or whether it's a plant or whether it's an oil, always tell your heart the shifa is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And maybe the beauty of your intention is what will give you the cure for your disease as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all those who are suffering with diseases and illnesses, whether they are mental, whether they are physical, that Allah the Almighty removes them, replaces them with that which is better for them, and the time that they suffer with them, that they are given expiation, kafara for their sins, and on Yawm al-Qiyamah it will be a source of goodness and happiness for them. Allahumma ameen wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.